How do you convert from the old way of charging by the hour to this new way of charging by points? This is a math problem. You can figure it out, but I'm going to help you. So let's say that you have a job that traditionally you would figure that it had 240 hours in it. Well, the vast majority of people who are putting a number of hours on a job, are doing it based off of one of two things. Either they're basing it off of their rates, their personal rate of how fast that they can paint, and they're setting that as their company benchmark, or they are taking a sample of all of the people that are on their team and they're kind of averaging their production rates together and coming up with a quote unquote average time to paint, right? Well, what we want to actually do instead of that is we actually want to calibrate it down to the slowest person. The reason that we want to calibrate it down to the slowest person is because it's easier for us to count up than it is for us to count up and down. Okay, so let's start with a baseline of how many hours it would take your slowest people to do this, right? Well, to do that, what we have to figure out is, well, okay, if this is our average, how in the middle is it, and what is the disparity between our lowest person and our highest person? Well, a lot of times the disparity between, for most companies, the disparity between the slowest guy and the highest guy is roughly a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning that for every 1 point that a apprentice can paint, a an experienced craftsman can paint 2 points. So roughly a 2-to-1 ratio, right? And so if we're putting this in the middle here, then what we're kind of saying, if we're averaging the two, the average here is 1.5, right? Meaning that in order to get the amount of points that we would get from the apprentice, we have to essentially slow this project down, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of math, and we're going to say, okay, um, 240 times 1.5 is about, let's see, what is that? So 24 divided by 2 is 12. And so we'll add a 0. We'll go 240, 0, 6, 3. So we're going to call this 360 points. Okay. So if traditionally your quote unquote average painter, who's kind of right in the middle, is going to produce 1.5 points per hour, and we're presuming that there's 240 hours, then the math here is telling us that there are actually 360 points in this job. Now, when we go to produce this job, let's say that we have this combination right here. We've got an apprentice who can produce 1 point per hour, and then we have a craftsman who can produce 2 points per hour. And we're dividing this job between the two of them. Well, it's not going to be as simple as taking 360 divided by 2, because they're going to be working the same amount of hours on the job, but they're going to be one is going to be producing faster than the other, right? And so basically what we have happening here is you have C equaling 2A, right? So 2A plus A equals 360, right? And so now we have to figure out, we have to solve for A, right? So now we take 2A plus that's 3A, and that equals 360. And so then we're going to take 360 divided, so A is 12, okay? And so the idea here is that it's it's 120. And so what's going to happen here is that your apprentice is going to produce 120 points, and then we're going to plug A back in. So that means that 2A equals 240 points, right? And so you're going to expect your apprentice here to produce 120 of the 360 points, and you're going to expect your craftsman painter to produce 240 because C equals 2A equals 240. Okay.